birds. So obviously we've had a detection in a wildlife bird, a grey skua. It was found at Petone, tested positive for H5N1. We just got confirmation of that midday today. What does that mean? Firstly, what doesn't it mean? It's not, I don't want to get anyone alarmed that this is suddenly a human health issue. It is not a human health issue. Whilst the disease has spread occasionally to humans overseas, there has been no human-to-human transmission, and the risks, as long as you do not touch them and have lots of contact with birds, the risk is very low. So just want to emphasise that for people not to be worried about that. Again, also food safety is, as long as you're cooking your chicken meat and eggs as you're supposed to, again, not a food safety risk. Obviously, there is a risk for poultry in the country, and that's why we've been working for a number of years now with our poultry sector. In terms of last year, we writ a operational agreement with the poultry sector on how we would handle this disease and others like it if they were to come to New Zealand. So we've had that preparation well in place, and we have been doing a lot of work with the poultry sector in terms of coming up with template biosecurity plans, and then MPI's on-farm team has also been helping poultry farmers come up with, fill in the gaps, as it were, for biosecurity preparedness. So there's been a lot of preparatory work go in for this. I feel like we are very well prepared for this disease arriving here. We are effectively one of the last places in the world to get it, so we've been able to see how it's impacted other countries around the world. We've gone there. I think 2 years ago, you went to England and had a good tour of the English poultry industry to see how it was affecting them, take lessons away from that. And obviously, unfortunately, we had a similar type outbreak last year, a bit of the H7 variety of bird flu, in which we were able to learn some lessons from that as to what works and what doesn't. So in terms of being prepared, we're as prepared as we possibly can be. And I think with that, probably the other point is the most important thing really is that people keep reporting when they find or see dead birds, particularly a large number of them. That helps us be able to track where these birds are washing up, and also that if we do start having domestic bird-to-bird spread here in New Zealand, that's of critical information for us in terms of helping us inform the poultry industry and for DOC and others to be aware of where the disease is and what it's doing. With that, I'll open up for any questions.
Can you give us more details about the actual bird? Was it alive when it was found? Who was it found? Was it found by a member of the public, and when?
Mary?
Thank you. So this is a subantarctic skua found on Petone Beach by a member of the public. This happened, I think, on the 10th of July, and subsequently the bird was taken to the Wellington Zoo, where it was tested, and then the results sequenced today.
When you test a bird, how long does it take for those results to come in?
So the sequencing run can take up to 48 hours. We were fortunate in this time we managed to get it up to 24 hours. We were able to match this virus, clade 2.3.4b, high path, H5N1. It's a bit of a mouthful. We were able to match that with genomic sequences from overseas.
But that was 5 days ago that the bird was found?
That's right. The
so
bird.
Why are we just learning now?
Well, the bird was only tested these 2 days ago.
Why is that? Why is it not tested immediately?
The bird wasn't showing any clinical signs of illness, and once it got to the Wellington Zoo, they assessed the bird and felt it should be tested.
So why did the member of the public report it? Was it showing signs of illness?
It wasn't reacting as you'd expect a wild bird to do. It was allowing people to approach it, those types of things.
Do you know how long it was on the beach for?
No.
Is there a risk that members of the public, pets, dogs, maybe may have come into contact with it then?
This bird was collected up as the Minister has said, it requires extremely sustained contact with a wild bird like that to actually be infected if you're a human. In the cases overseas, it's mostly in humans who are working with very dense populations of animals, like in chicken sheds, those types of things. So the risk is very low.
Are you expecting that there will be more cases within birds in the coming weeks or days?
Well, I think if you look at what's happened in Australia, they had the one detection and then more started showing up. So obviously this is we're always expecting it would be a springtime when these birds start migrating out of Antarctica up through the Southern Ocean. So we are going to see a pattern very similar to Australia, undoubtedly, where there will be more show up on the shorelines. And that's why it's important, the message is out there for people. Report it. There's the 800 number, 80 99 66. Report it in, give us the information. We can send people around with the proper protective gear.
Is it relatively easy to detect, like, the behaviour of that bird?
Well, Mary can go into the specifics, but I would imagine any wild bird that you can walk up to and touch or get close to, it's probably a bit weird, and that's sort of stuff you'd be wanting to respond. But we're obviously looking also for situations where you see a number of birds together having died. That would be quite symptomatic, or show symptoms of what we think the disease might present.
So we've had the shoreline bird now, and that's happened in Australia as well, but how likely is that? Is it inevitable that this will end up spreading?
Yes, it's inevitable that we will get more birds show up coming from Antarctica. The disease is in the Southern Ocean now amongst that bird life. So, it was always inevitable that it was going to get here eventually. Like I said, we're the last country in the world to effectively get this. It's spread all across the globe. Everyone else has learned how to live with it. We're going to go through that process as well. We've learnt from things they've done, so I think we're probably going to be the most prepared in the world to be able to live with it.
But is it inevitable that it will spread to poultry farms, wildlife?
Again, it's a hard one to know. What I would say is what we would emphasise for our poultry industry is having that biosecurity preparedness. We can keep it out. So overseas, they've learnt how to live with it, how to keep it out of their flocks and to keep the infections as low as possible. That's where we need to be.
Can you speak a little bit about how you've prepared, or you and the poultry industry have prepared for something like this and what they might be doing?
So in terms of, there's the operational agreement that sets out how we're going to interact with them and how we'd respond in various situations, and also just having that dialogue open with them. In terms of the individual farms, it really is about being able to contain your birds from wildlife and making sure that you've got the ability, the likely spread, if it was to get to a poultry farm, from wildlife is probably going to be ducks. And that's what we think happened down in Otago with the H7 virus outbreak. It was some ducks flew into the free-range area, they had the low pathogen, the chickens took it back into the shed, circulated, turned into high pathogen. And so that's the likely scenario. So it's a case for free range, for those that are doing free range or they've got barns that may have a few gaps. They need to make sure that they're secure and they can keep their birds separate from the wildlife is the way to protect it. You've also got vehicle movements and people movements which can also bring it in. And so I've visited a number of farms where they have quite strict biosecurity measures for people coming into the property. You've got to, take your various shoes and stuff off, put on their overalls, their gumboots, disinfect. There was one place that you basically had to drive your vehicle through massive, like a car wash type thing, to disinfect it to make sure that bugs aren't going in between operations. And so there's a lot of our poultry producers have got good levels like that, and we're just saying for all of them, that's where they need to be aiming.
What about risk to the native bird population? Is there any risk?
There is a risk. I'll perhaps pass over to Doc to help with that one.
Yeah, so like, you could just
Yep. Right.
Sorry.
Can you
Yep.
talk about the native sea islands at the same time?
Yes, sure. So, like Minister Hoggard was saying, we don't really know what will happen once it arrives here in New Zealand and starts spreading, or if it will spread. But what we know is we have quite unique fauna and marine mammals and birds, so it could be quite different, but we're just being prepared and rolling out our plans to protect our species as much as we can.
Can you tell us what those plans are?
So we currently are rolling out our vaccination plan, which is to protect core breeding populations of 5 species. So these are critically endangered species that already have quite intensive management programs around them. And then we'll just be doing more biosecurity, like Minister Hoggard said, the same kind of things, increasing practice, but also just doing our business as usual work. And so things that the public do as well, increasing trapping, doing habitat restoration, making sure our populations are as strong as possible so that they can fight this thing by themselves.
Something like the fairy tern, which obviously isn't a managed population, how much at risk is that, given how endangered it is at the moment, and it's a seabird?
Did you say it's not a managed population?
Well, it's like a population that isn't on an island and has tracked.
Oh, sorry. So it is an intensively managed program, so they do still do a lot of work with it, and so they have got biosecurity protocols in place already, which they already follow about managing carcasses and any other types of disease outbreaks around them. So we'll be continuing to do things like that.
Can birds get sick from carcasses, like say a hawk feasts on a carcass?
Absolutely. So birds that are predators and scavengers, they absolutely can become infected by that route. And similarly for marine mammals that are eating dead birds that are infected.
What's the sort of worst case scenario for both wildlife and for poultry farms?
Well, obviously, that's what we're intending to avoid. I mean, worst case would be you get a number of infections within some major production facilities, and so there would be a reduction in eggs and chicken meat. You know, that's some of the cheapest forms of protein that New Zealanders have available, and that's why we've been so adamant on working towards making sure we've got plans in place and working with the industry for a good couple of years now on building up the plans and the preparation so that that doesn't happen, and that's what we want to avoid.
If it does reach a poultry farm, if it does reach a poultry farm, does that effectively mean that entire population would need to be culled?
Well, the death rate is about 95 to 100%, so effectively the bulk of them are going to die anyway, and you'll need to basically sanitise, cleanse the whole facility to be able to repopulate it and get started again.
Now that you've had a positive test, how does the response change? Like, are you going to be upping the number of tests? Like, what's happening?
Well, certainly since it's been detected in Australia, we've had more reports come in, so I think we'll probably see even more reports come in. So yes, that is going to be our main thing, is really tracking all these, the surveillance, doing the testing, get an understanding of where it is and do we have internal spread within New Zealand, or is it just offshore birds coming in. In terms of are we going to do anything differently suddenly? Well, we've been working for a while now and putting all these plans together for the industry, so we've kind of already done that work in terms of getting ready for it. So there's not some sudden change to DEFCON 2 or something like that tomorrow. It is, we're going to be doing more surveillance, more testing, but by and large it's carry on with the same work with the industry that we've been doing so far.
When you say more surveillance, are you meaning you are relying on members of the public?
That is one part of it, but we also, Stu or Mary can talk about the other testing that we already do through wildlife.
Sure. So we also track the admissions of wild birds to wildlife hospitals. We also work with our colleagues from the Department of Conservation, and then we absolutely rely on public reports. And that's why, we also really want to thank the public for reporting. It shows that our system's working. We've been able to detect this first case here in one of these ocean-going birds, and we are going to need that to continue.
So what's your advice to the public then?
So the public...
Yeah, basically if you see something, so if you see some dead birds or a sick bird, report it. 0800 80 99 66 is the number. Take photos, get a GPS spot if you can, send it through to us. That's the information that we need, and obviously don't go and pick it up yourself. let us know and we'll send the right people around to do it. If you are a poultry farmer and you're concerned, obviously talk to your vet. They will talk to us. And even if you've just got a few chickens in the backyard and you're concerned, talk to your vet. There's good advice on our website. Gives people advice on how to protect their birds that they may have in the backyard. We've been running an ad campaign for quite some time now on this to provide that advice to people. So there's quite a bit on our website under bird flu.
There's a difference between the last strain that was here, the H7, and then this one.
Yes, there is. That was Mary can give the technical details to it, but there was a sort of strain that came out of a low pathogen. So we have low pathogen avian influenza already in New Zealand. It circulates. That was the first time a low pathogen had turned into a high pathogen. The difference with the H5 that we're really worried about is that this is the one that is, what do we call it, wildlife enabled or spread or something. It's really easy to spread between various species, and that's why we're so concerned about it. Mary, you can put your PhD to work and tell us all the rest of it.
Can I just ask that as part of that you specifically talk about whether there's more of a risk to humans in this particular strain?
So the risk to humans remains very low.
Yeah.
Across the world, this particular strain, 2.3.4.4b, the high path strain, has spread across all the world, right, except for now some places in the Pacific. And so this strain is probably the one that's been the most studied and the best documented. And people have, and so, yeah, the risk to humans remains very low.
There has been no human-to-human spread of it.
Can you summarise then how this does impact humans and also how it impacts birds?
I can do the birds, and I'll ask my colleague from the Health Ministry to do the humans, obviously. So in terms of birds, the impacts on birds can be very variable. So some species might not really be affected at all, and some will die in large numbers. Of course, what we know is that chickens die in very large numbers. Okay, so very variable. We don't know how this is going to affect our native wildlife here in New Zealand because this strain has never been here before. I'll pass to my colleague from Health.
Evening. So reiterating the previous statements that the risk to human health remains low. It remains very rare for humans to be infected with H5 bird flu, and the disease is generally only found in people who have had a lot of close contact with infected birds or other animals. So again, reiterating the advice not to touch or engage with those animals and to report it to the hotline. As the Minister said, it is also very unlikely to transmit from human to human. In terms of what would happen if you are infected, there are a range of symptoms available on Health New Zealand's website. So high temperature, feeling hot and shivery, aching muscles and headaches and the like. If anyone is concerned about exposure or experiencing symptoms, there's also good public health information on Health New Zealand's website, and we would encourage people to reach out to their GP in the first instance or to call Healthline, discuss the circumstance, and get advice from them.
And can we talk about where we're at in the vaccination program? Have you all been vaccinated? Are you midway through?
I know they're doing 300 vaccinations. Are we all the way through? No, but they're working towards vaccinating those 300 pairs or essential breeding birds that was mentioned before. So there was a trial run done last year, and I think obviously you don't know until you get the diseases there and present, do you know how effective the vaccine will be, but there was no adverse reactions from the birds to the vaccine. Yeah.
And is the biggest risk here probably to our poultry industry rather than our native birds?
I think it's an equal risk, to be honest. It's where these birds are found only in New Zealand. They're not found anywhere else in the world, so they're important to us. So that's a big risk for us. And obviously, as I mentioned before, eggs, poultry, they're some of the most cheapest forms of protein that New Zealanders purchase. So we don't want any supply disruptions there because people are already doing it tough with the cost of living. We don't want to make it worse.
So it's an unknown risk to our native birds at this stage?
Yes, yeah.
Is there any export risk? Do countries stop taking our stuff?
So after the H7, when it's in poultry, there is an export risk. So at the moment, just because we've had a detection in seabirds, we will notify WOA, which is World Organisation Animal Health, that we've had this detection. Or we probably already have we? Yes, we have. And then if it was to get into poultry, then yes, that then becomes a challenge for a small amount that we do export. And in particular, after the H7 outbreak, there was some challenges with pet food going to various markets around the world. Now we've worked on solutions to that, so hopefully if it was to happen, hopefully the pause to trade would be much shorter or very, very brief. So we've been working away at trying to make sure that we can get that trade moving again as fast as possible if that scenario was to happen.
Can you give us details of what you want the public to look out for in terms of behaviour from the birds or symptoms?
Mary, you're the bird expert.
Right. So we're really asking the public to report sightings of sick or dead birds, 3 or more, to the Exotic Pest and Disease Hotline, 0800 80 99 66. We don't want anyone to touch those. We just want them to observe them, ring them in, GPS location, and speak to one of our investigators about if those need to be sampled.
When you're saying sick, I mean, obviously you said today that the bird that was found on the 10th wasn't necessarily sick, it was just displaying unusual behaviours. So I mean,
Sure.
what are the actual signs that people need to look for?
So mostly we find these things dead, honestly. So it's quite unusual. Wildlife typically present dead. They don't usually allow people to come and fetch them or to pick them up. But we could see things like nervous signs, so things like being paralysed, being shaky or ataxic, those types of clinical signs. In poultry, sometimes people see respiratory signs, diarrhoea, these kinds of things. So a pretty sick bird, acting weird in groups of more than, in groups. We want to hear about these. That was, and this comes back to the type of bird that this was. So this is an ocean-going seabird. These things travel in ones. They come from Antarctica, from the subantarctics, and they disperse over the Southern Ocean, and they make landfall in New Zealand and Australia. So it's not unexpected that this type of bird would be found in ones, and the public has been great at reporting these as well. We've tested a number of these over the last few weeks, particularly since Australia has made their detections. What's really important as we go forward is that we focus on understanding if the disease transmits to kind of other birds in New Zealand, right? And we won't be expecting that to happen in ones.
In terms of people with dogs or animals not being do people need to be doing anything differently?
I'll leave it to the vet again.
Yeah. So yes, we need to limit the contact between dogs, cats, and sick birds, always. But in this disease as well, mammals can get this disease, and mammals are infected by eating infected birds. Same as seals, right? Yeah.
So if you're taking your dog for a walk on the beach, don't let it eat the dead seagull. Yeah.
Good way to finish.
Sound advice. Yeah. Same goes for humans as well. Yeah. Especially so. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys.